It was 7 in the morning, and I was about to leave for work when my dog, Baxter, did something he had never done before. He stood in front of the door, blocking my way, growling deep in his throat. I tried to step around him, but he snapped at the air and grabbed my sleeve, pulling me back hard. His eyes were locked on my car outside, and I didn't understand what was wrong. At first, I thought he was just being protective, maybe saw another dog or a stranger passing by. But then I looked out the window, and everything in me went cold. Baxter's body was tense, shaking, and he wouldn't let me move. I didn't know it yet, but that single moment, his growl, his warning, was the reason I was still alive. Because at 7:30, the bomb squad would arrive and tell me something I would never forget. Stay with me till the end to hear what really happened, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and comment where you're watching from. My name is Rachel Monroe, and I live in a quiet neighborhood in Northern California. It's the kind of place where everyone waves when you drive by, and mornings usually start with the sound of sprinklers and birds on the fence. I work at the local community center, and my routine never really changes. Wake up at 6, feed Baxter, make coffee, and head out by 7. Baxter is my 4-year-old German Shepherd mix. He's been with me since college, a rescue dog with more personality than most people I know. He's smart, loyal, and protective, but never aggressive. Every morning, he'd sit by the door while I got ready, tail wagging, waiting for his treat before I left. That morning felt no different. At least at first. The sun had barely come up, painting the sky pale pink. The smell of fresh coffee filled the kitchen, and I hummed softly while packing my lunch. Baxter sat near the door, watching me with those calm brown eyes of his. "All right, buddy," I said, glancing at the clock. "One walk and then I've got to go earn your dinner." He wagged his tail but didn't move. I didn't think much of it. Maybe he was just sleepy. I poured his food into the bowl, and he finally got up, eating quietly while I scrolled through my phone. There was a text from my mom. "Drive safe today, sweetheart." I smiled, texting back a quick heart before grabbing my bag and keys. Everything about that morning felt so normal, so safe. When I opened the front door, the air outside was cool and fresh, carrying the smell of wet grass from last night's rain. Baxter followed me, his nails clicking softly on the hardwood floor. I turned to him and smiled. "I'll be back by 4. Be good, okay?" That's when everything changed. Baxter's ears shot up. His body stiffened like a statue. Before I could even take a step, he moved in front of the door, planting himself firmly between me and the outside world. "Baxter," I said, half laughing. "What's wrong with you?" He didn't blink. He growled, a deep, low rumble I had never heard from him before. I froze, my hand still on the doorknob. "Hey, it's okay, boy. There's nothing out there." I pushed gently against him to move him aside, but he wouldn't budge. Instead, he barked sharply, startling me. When I tried to take another step forward, he grabbed my sleeve with his teeth and yanked me back. "Baxter, stop!" I shouted, shocked. He had never acted like this in his life. For a moment, I thought maybe he'd gone crazy, but then I saw his eyes. They weren't wild, they were focused. He was staring through the window beside the door, his body trembling, his gaze locked on my car in the driveway. I followed his line of sight, expecting to see someone standing there, but there was nothing, just my silver sedan sitting quietly in the morning light. My confusion turned into unease. "Is there someone out there?" I whispered. Baxter growled again, louder this time, stepping closer to the door but keeping his body between me and it. Something in me shifted. It wasn't just his growl. It was the way he moved, calm but alert, protective but cautious. He wasn't afraid of what was outside. He was afraid for me. I took a slow step back, my heart pounding harder than it should have. Maybe he smelled something I couldn't. Maybe there was a coyote or a person hiding. I didn't know, but I trusted him enough to wait. I reached for my phone, thinking about calling my neighbor, Mr. Lewis, who was usually up early working in his garage. Baxter's eyes never left the window. His tail was stiff, his muscles tense. I whispered, "What are you trying to tell me, boy?" He let out one short bark, sharp and commanding, as if he was saying, "Stay." and for some reason I did. It was the first time I had ever felt that kind of fear in my own home, the kind that crawls up your spine and settles in your chest. I stood there barefoot, holding my phone, staring at my quiet driveway with a sick feeling growing in my stomach. Something wasn't right. I didn't know it yet, but Baxter was about to save me from something far worse than I could imagine. I stood frozen by the door, clutching my phone while Baxter's growl filled the silence. It wasn't a bark of fear. It was a warning. His body blocked mine completely, his head low, his gaze locked on the car outside as if he could see something I couldn't. The morning that had started so peacefully was suddenly thick with tension. I could hear my heartbeat louder than the ticking of the kitchen clock. "Baxter, what's going on?" I whispered, trying to sound calm. My voice trembled anyway. He didn't move. He stayed in that defensive stance, tail stiff, ears straight, eyes burning with focus. I reached for the curtain beside the door, slowly pulling it back to look outside. My driveway looked perfectly normal. My silver sedan was right where I had left it the night before. The street was quiet. No people. No cars passing. Not even the sound of birds. It was eerily still. I exhaled shakily, trying to convince myself that I was overreacting. "You're scaring me, boy. It's fine." When I turned back to him, Baxter barked, once, loud and sharp. I flinched, the sound echoing in the small hallway. Then, before I could react, he stepped forward, grabbed my sleeve again, and tugged me back away from the door. I stumbled, nearly dropping my phone. That's when I knew this wasn't some random behavior. He was protecting me from something real. I crouched down beside him and placed my hand on his back. His fur was standing straight up. His muscles trembled under my palm. "Okay," I whispered. "We'll wait." I glanced at the clock. It was only 7:05. Normally, I would have been in my car by now, halfway to work. I felt a twist of confusion and fear in my stomach. Something about the timing felt important, but I couldn't explain why. Trying to calm down, I opened the door just a crack to check again. Baxter lunged forward, growling so fiercely it startled me. "Hey!" I hissed, pulling him back. "What is it?" He wasn't looking at the yard this time. His eyes were fixed on the underside of my car. I followed his stare and noticed something odd, something I hadn't seen before. Under the driver's side door, a small glint of metal caught the morning light. It was tiny, barely visible, like a wire or a piece of foil. My heart skipped. "What is that?" I whispered to myself. Before I could think, I called out across the street. "Mr. Lewis, you awake?" My elderly neighbor, Mr. Lewis, was already outside watering his plants. He looked up, squinting. "Morning, Rachel. You okay? Could you come look at something for me?" I called back, trying to keep my voice steady. He walked over slowly, still in his slippers, carrying his coffee mug. Baxter barked again, louder, his teeth bared now. Mr. Lewis stopped halfway up my driveway, holding up a hand. "Whoa, what's got into him?" "I don't know," I said nervously. "He won't let me go near my car. He's acting like there's something out there." Mr. Lewis frowned and bent slightly, trying to look under the vehicle from where he stood. Wait, what's that under your door?" I felt a chill crawl up my back. "You see it too?" He nodded slowly, his face changing from casual curiosity to concern. He took a step back, then another. "Rachel, get inside, right now." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" He looked at me, his voice low and serious. "I'm not sure, but I've seen something like that before. It looks like wiring. Could be nothing, but I don't like it. Call the police." I didn't hesitate. I slammed the door shut and grabbed my phone with shaking hands. Baxter stayed pressed against my legs, growling softly. My fingers fumbled as I dialed 911. The operator's calm voice answered. "911? What's your emergency?" I stammered. "Hi, I think there's something under my car. My neighbor saw it too. My dog won't let me outside. He's acting like something's wrong." The dispatcher's tone changed immediately. "Ma'am, I need you to stay inside the house. Do not approach your vehicle. Officers are on their way. Can you confirm your address?" I gave it to her quickly. She told me to stay put and keep the line open. My knees felt weak as I sank to the floor beside Baxter. Mr. Lewis called from outside, keeping his distance. "They're coming, right?" "Yes," I yelled back through the window. They said to stay inside. He nodded and retreated to his porch, glancing nervously at the car. The morning felt heavier now, the air still and thick. Baxter hadn't stopped growling once. Every few seconds, he would glance at me, then back at the car, as if making sure I understood that danger was still there. I stared at the clock again. 7:20. It had only been 20 minutes since this started, but it felt like hours. My phone was still pressed to my ear, the dispatcher reassuring me that help was close. Then I heard it, a faint, rhythmic ticking sound. My stomach flipped. "Do you hear that?" I whispered to the operator. "Ma'am," she said, her voice sharp now. "Get away from the front windows, move to the back of the house and stay there until officers arrive." I stood up, heart pounding so hard it hurt. "Come on, Baxter," I said, my voice shaking. He followed instantly, sticking close to me as we moved down the hallway. We reached the kitchen, and I crouched behind the counter, holding his collar. He stayed alert, his ears twitching at every noise. Then the sound of sirens filled the distance. I peeked out the side window and saw flashing lights turning onto our street. Relief washed over me so hard that I started crying. Baxter looked up at me, tail still stiff, eyes locked on the door, like he knew the danger wasn't gone yet. The dispatcher's voice came through my phone again. "Stay where you are, ma'am. The bomb squad has been called. Do not go near your car." Bomb squad. The words echoed in my head. I looked at Baxter and whispered, "You knew. You knew before anyone." He didn't move. He just pressed closer to me, still watching the door, still guarding me like his life depended on it. The sound of sirens grew louder until it filled the whole neighborhood, bouncing off the houses and breaking the thick, tense silence that had been pressing on me. I stayed crouched behind the kitchen counter, my hand resting on Baxter's collar. My heart felt like it was trying to climb out of my chest. Every second felt longer than the one before it. When I peeked through the side window, I saw the first police cruiser stop at the end of my driveway. 2 officers stepped out, one talking into a radio, while the other motioned toward my house. I stood up slowly, still gripping my phone. The dispatcher's voice was steady in my ear. "Ma'am, the officers have arrived. Stay inside until they approach your door." "Okay," I whispered. Baxter's ears twitched at every noise outside, but he didn't move from my side. His growl had softened to a low rumble, a constant reminder that he was still on alert. Through the window, I saw my neighbor, Mr. Lewis, standing behind his fence, watching with worry. He caught my eye and mouthed, "Stay back." I nodded, even though my legs were trembling. A moment later, someone knocked on the door, not hard, but firm. "Police, ma'am, it's safe to talk," a voice called. I cracked the door open just enough to see one of the officers, a tall man wearing a vest labeled County Sheriff. His expression was calm, but serious. "Are you Rachel Monroe?" "Yes," I said. "Is it safe? What's going on?" He shook his head slightly. "We're not sure yet. You did the right thing by staying inside. Your dog may have just saved your life. We need you to stay back while we assess the situation." I swallowed hard, glancing at Baxter. He wouldn't let me go outside. He kept looking at the car. The officer nodded. "Animals know things we don't. We'll take a look. Just stay here and keep your dog calm." He stepped off the porch, joining the others gathering around my car. They didn't get too close. One officer crouched down with a flashlight, shining it underneath. I couldn't hear their words, but I could tell by the way they moved that something wasn't right. Baxter barked once, sharp and nervous, as if confirming my thoughts. A few minutes later, one of the officers spoke into his radio, and another truck turned the corner. A large, dark vehicle with Bomb Squad written across the side in yellow letters. My stomach turned. This couldn't be real. Not here. Not in my quiet neighborhood. I stepped back from the window and leaned against the wall. "Baxter, what is happening?" I whispered. He looked up at me, calm but still alert, as if he was saying, "Just wait." 2 men in heavy protective gear got out of the truck, their movements careful and deliberate. They spoke briefly with the officers before walking toward my car with special equipment. The sight was surreal. My driveway, the same place where I parked every day without a thought, now looked like a danger zone. One of the bomb technicians knelt near the driver's side and carefully inspected underneath. The longer they worked, the more I could feel the weight of fear settle in my chest. I didn't realize I was holding my breath until one of them raised his hand, signaling for the others to move back. Then I heard it, the faint metallic sound again, that same soft ticking I'd noticed earlier. My blood ran cold. I didn't need anyone to explain what it meant. The officer near my door called out, "Ma'am, please step farther inside the house and away from the windows. We're handling something dangerous here." I did exactly what he said, pulling Baxter with me. We moved into the hallway, far from the front of the house. Baxter stayed pressed against my leg, calm but watchful. I sat on the floor with him, trying not to cry. For the next several minutes, everything felt suspended in time. The sounds outside were faint. The officers' voices, the careful movements, the rain starting to fall again. Then the radio chatter grew more urgent. I couldn't see much from where I sat, but I caught glimpses of the officers backing away from the car, guiding my neighbor even farther back. I didn't move. I couldn't. My body felt numb, my mind spinning with questions. Who would put something under my car? Why me? Finally, the officer returned to my porch and knocked again, his voice steady but firm. "Ma'am, we've confirmed a device under your vehicle. We believe it's a homemade explosive. We need you and your neighbors to stay inside until our team disables it." My breath caught. "A bomb? Are you serious?" "Yes, ma'am. You're safe in here. Just stay back." I sank onto the floor, staring at Baxter. He tilted his head slightly, as if to ask why I looked so surprised. Tears filled my eyes, and I hugged him, burying my face in his fur. "You knew, didn't you? You knew something was wrong." He stayed still, letting me hold him, his breathing steady and slow. Outside, the bomb squad continued their work. I heard one of the technicians shout something, then a long silence. Time blurred together. 5 minutes, 10, maybe more. Finally, one of the officers came to the door again, speaking through the glass. "It's secure, ma'am. We disabled the device. You can relax now." I felt my knees give out. I sat right there on the floor, shaking, as Baxter leaned against me. The officer added, "We'll need to investigate how it got there, but if you'd gone near that car or started it, the results could have been deadly. Your dog saved your life." I didn't even know what to say. My throat was tight, my heart still racing. I looked down at Baxter again, running my hand over his back. He looked up at me with calm, trusting eyes, the same eyes that had stopped me from walking out the door 20 minutes earlier. "I should have trusted you sooner," I whispered. "You're my hero." In that moment, as the officers cleared the area and the rain washed over my driveway, one truth settled deep in my chest. Baxter hadn't just protected me. He had sensed danger no human could have noticed. He had listened to instincts that I had ignored. And because of that, I was still alive. The morning that had started so quietly now looked like something out of a disaster zone. My peaceful street was surrounded by police cars, yellow caution tape, and flashing lights that reflected off the wet pavement. Neighbors stood behind the tape, whispering, their faces pale with worry and curiosity. Officers moved quickly and deliberately, marking off the area while the bomb squad worked near my car. I stayed inside, standing by the window with Baxter pressed close to my leg, his eyes still fixed on the driveway, as if he refused to relax until it was over. One of the officers, a woman with short blonde hair, approached the porch and motioned for me to come to the door. I opened it halfway, keeping Baxter behind me. "Ma'am, I'm Officer Delgado," she said gently. "The device is secure now, but we're going to have to take your car for investigation. You're safe to step outside if you'd like. We'll explain what we found." My throat felt tight. "You're sure it's safe?" She nodded. "Yes, ma'am. It's been completely disabled. You can come out." I hesitated, but Baxter gave a soft nudge to my leg, as if telling me it was okay. I stepped outside for the first time since that terrifying morning began. The cool air hit my face, carrying a faint metallic smell from the equipment the bomb squad had used. The rain had stopped, but the ground was still slick, reflecting the flashing blue and red lights. A bomb technician in heavy gear was crouched beside my car. He looked up as I approached, his voice calm but serious. "You're very lucky, ma'am. Your dog likely saved your life." I swallowed hard, glancing down at Baxter. "What exactly did you find?" He pointed toward the underside of the driver's door, where I could still see faint scratches and a small section of exposed metal. There was a homemade explosive device attached near the gas tank. It was wired to a motion sensor. Most likely, it would have detonated when the car moved. The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. When the car moved, I repeated, barely able to get the words out. Yes, if you had turned the key or shifted into gear, it would have gone off. The impact radius could have been deadly. I couldn't breathe. The thought of what might have happened, the explosion, the noise, the heat, made my stomach turn. My voice shook as I said, "But why? Who would do something like that?" He exchanged a look with the officer beside him. "We don't know yet, but we're looking into it. You parked anywhere unfamiliar recently?" I nodded slowly, trying to think back. The only place different this week was the courthouse downtown. I was paying a parking ticket 3 days ago. The officer's expression hardened slightly. "That might be where it happened. We've had reports of suspicious activity in that lot recently. Someone may have been targeting random cars, or worse, looking for a specific one." The thought made my skin crawl. Targeted? He raised his hands gently. "We can't say for sure yet, but the device was well made. Whoever did it knew what they were doing." Behind me, Baxter gave a low growl toward the car, almost like he was still warning me to stay back. The bomb technician smiled faintly. "That's a smart animal. He probably heard or smelled something we couldn't." I knelt down beside Baxter, my knees shaking. I wrapped my arms around his neck and buried my face in his fur. "You saved me," I whispered. "You really did." He stayed still, calm and solid, as if he understood exactly what I was saying. After a few minutes, Officer Delgado guided me to the sidewalk, where they had set up a small table for questioning. "We just need a few details for the report," she explained kindly. Her voice was steady, but there was something gentle in the way she spoke, like she knew I was barely holding it together. I told her everything: what time I woke up, how Baxter had blocked the door, how he had growled at the car and refused to let me pass. By the time I finished, my hands were trembling. She wrote everything down carefully and then said, "Rachel, I've been doing this job for 15 years, and I've seen a lot of things, but I've never seen a dog act like that before. You should be proud of him. He's a hero." I glanced at Baxter again. He was sitting patiently by the steps, his fur still damp from the morning rain. His eyes followed me every time I moved, loyal and protective as always. Officer Delgado continued, "The bomb squad will take your car for evidence. We'll keep you updated, but for now, you should stay with family or a friend for a few days." I nodded, still trying to process everything. My hands felt cold despite the rising sun. "Okay, I'll go to my mom's tonight." When I looked up again, the bomb squad was loading my car onto a flatbed truck. Watching it disappear down the street felt strange. That car had been a part of my routine for years, and now it was evidence in a criminal investigation. As the officers started to clear the scene, Mr. Lewis approached from across the street. He looked shaken, but relieved. "Rachel, are you all right?" "I think so," I said softly. "They said if I had turned the key, it would have exploded." He shook his head, letting out a low whistle. "That dog of yours is something else." I smiled faintly. Yeah, he knew before any of us did. By the time the last police car pulled away, the neighborhood had started to feel like itself again, though I knew nothing would ever be the same. I went back inside, closing the door behind me. The house felt strangely quiet now, but not empty. Baxter followed me to the couch, jumped up beside me, and rested his head in my lap. For the first time since that morning, I felt safe. As I stroked his fur, I thought about how easily everything could have ended differently. One step past that door, one turn of a key, and I would have been gone. I had ignored the small signs before, the growl, the stillness, the way Baxter had planted himself between me and danger. But he hadn't ignored them. He had trusted his instincts. That day, I learned that sometimes the quietest warnings are the ones that save you. I looked down at Baxter, his eyes half closed, finally relaxed. "You're not just my dog," I whispered. "You're my guardian." Outside, the last traces of flashing lights faded from the wet pavement. The danger was gone, but the memory of that ticking sound, of Baxter's growl and the cold fear in my chest, stayed with me. It was a reminder that life can change in a single moment, and that sometimes the one thing standing between you and disaster walks on four legs and loves you more than life itself. The following morning, the neighborhood was quieter than I had ever heard it. The rain had stopped completely, leaving the air cool and heavy, as if the whole world had exhaled after holding its breath all night. The news vans were gone, the police tape had been taken down, and the bomb squad had cleared the area hours earlier. But inside me, everything still felt unsettled. Every sound, every creak of the floor made my heart jump. I sat on the couch, staring at Baxter as he slept curled up beside me. He looked peaceful again, the way he used to, his paws twitching slightly as he dreamed. The morning light filtered through the curtains, soft and golden, falling across his fur. It was hard to believe that this same dog, this calm, loyal soul, had stood in front of me yesterday morning and saved my life. I couldn't stop replaying it in my head. The growl, the warning, the confusion, the moment I realized he had known before I did. Around 9, there was a knock at the door. I felt my chest tighten before I saw who it was. When I opened the door, it was Officer Delgado, holding a folder in one hand and a gentle smile on her face. "Morning, Rachel," she said softly. "I just wanted to check in. How are you holding up?" I stepped aside, inviting her in. Trying to process it, I guess. I didn't sleep much. She nodded knowingly and looked down at Baxter, who wagged his tail weakly at the sight of her. "Your boy's famous now," she said, smiling. "We put his story in the department's morning report. He's officially listed as an animal hero." I let out a quiet laugh for the first time in what felt like days. "He deserves it." She sat down across from me and opened the folder. "I wanted to update you on the investigation. The device we found was confirmed to be a homemade explosive. It was built with materials that could be found in most hardware stores. It wasn't random either. It was placed carefully, like someone knew what they were doing. The words hit me like a weight. "So it was meant for me?" She sighed. "We don't know yet. It's possible it was mistaken identity, but it's also possible someone targeted your car after you parked near that courthouse. We're following up on all leads." I felt that cold shiver return. It's terrifying to think that someone out there could just do something like that. "I know," she said gently, "but what's important is that you listened to your dog. Most people wouldn't have. You trusted him. That decision saved you." Baxter raised his head then, almost as if he understood she was talking about him. His ears perked up, and his tail thumped once against the couch. Delgado smiled at him. "You've got quite a partner there." After she left, I sat for a long time in silence, just thinking. The day before, I had woken up like it was any other morning. I had made coffee, packed my lunch, and planned out my day without knowing my life was hanging by a thread. One wrong step, one turn of a key, and I wouldn't be here. I realized that sometimes the smallest moments, pausing because something feels off, listening to your instincts, can change everything. When my mom arrived later that afternoon, she wrapped me in the kind of hug that makes everything feel real again. She cried when I told her the full story, her hands shaking as she stroked Baxter's head. "You've got an angel, honey," she whispered. "You both do." We sat together for hours, the three of us, talking about everything and nothing. The fear began to ease, replaced by gratitude so deep I could barely put it into words. I kept glancing at Baxter, amazed by the quiet power of what he'd done. He didn't act like a hero. He didn't seem to realize how close we had come to tragedy. He was just content to lie beside me, his head resting on my lap, breathing slow and steady. That night, I took him out for a walk. The air smelled clean, washed fresh by the rain. The sun had just set, and the streetlights glowed softly. Baxter trotted happily beside me, his tail wagging, every bit the same loyal friend he had always been. I looked up at the stars and whispered, "Thank you." When we got home, I knelt down and held his face between my hands. "You saved my life," I told him quietly. "You knew before I did. I'll never forget that." His eyes were warm and gentle, full of that unconditional love dogs give so freely. He licked my hand, and that simple gesture brought tears to my eyes. In the weeks that followed, life slowly went back to normal, or as normal as it could be after something like that. My car was replaced, and the police kept me updated on the case, though no suspect was ever caught. The media covered Baxter's story for a few days, calling him a hero dog, but then the world moved on. For me, though, the lesson stayed. I learned that intuition is real, both in humans and in the animals who share our lives. Sometimes, the world gives us warnings, quiet ones, and if we don't listen, we might never get another chance. Even now, months later, every time I grab my keys in the morning, I look down at Baxter. If he's calm, I know I'm safe. And every time he nudges me or stands by the door, I stop and pay attention. He's earned that trust 1,000 times over. When people ask me about that day, I tell them the truth. It wasn't luck, and it wasn't fate. It was love, the kind of love that protects without thinking, that senses danger before it shows its face. Baxter didn't save me because he wanted a reward or recognition. He did it because I was his person, and that's what loyalty looks like in its purest form. If you've ever had a pet who seemed to understand you in ways words can't explain, then you already know what I mean. They're more than animals. They're family, and sometimes they're our quietest heroes. If you believe animals have instincts beyond what we can understand, subscribe to my channel for more true stories like this one, and comment where you're watching from. I'd love to hear about your own loyal companions and how they've touched your life.